Welcome to the webinar, everyone. I hope you're settled in and ready for a good night of learning about aviation headsets. We certainly thank you for joining us here tonight. The topic again is aviation headsets, what's new, and how to choose the right one. We thank you for joining us on this, the latest in our Sporty series of webinars where we look at different topics for general aviation pilots. And hope tonight we give you a lot to think about and answer some questions. A couple of quick housekeeping points. This webinar will be recorded and in the next couple days will be available at sporties.com/webinars. So if you have to step away and you missed something, or if you just didn't catch something and need to review it, that will be available as a video at sporties.com/webinars. Also, feel free to ask questions throughout the night. There is a questions box in your webinar control panel there. Ask away, and at the end of the webinar tonight, we'll try to save some time to answer some of those questions. That's me, John Zimmerman. I'll be your presenter tonight. I'm a vice president at Sporty's Pilot Shop. You see there, right on the runway at I-69, Claremont County Airport, just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. It's a great place to work because you get to be an active general aviation pilot, just like most of you. So, as part of working at Sporty's, I'm out there flying with lots of different airplanes and helicopters and flying with almost all the headsets we've talked about tonight on a regular basis, and have flown with all of them at one point or another. So I'm out there using these products in the same system you are, and hopefully can share some of that perspective with you tonight. Want to start out real quick off the bat just to get a handle on who's in the audience tonight. Take our quick poll, which is asking simply, what headset are you flying with right now? I limited on space here, so just give a couple: Bose, Lightspeed, David Clark, Telex, or something else. Just select something there on your screen. We'll total those up and let you know the numbers here. So we've got most of the votes in. Looks like the majority is David Clark, number using Bose as well, and Lightspeed, although we have really a large number in the other category. So that's good, pretty good diversity. We'll be talking about all of those tonight and some more. Give you a quick outline of the webinar that we're going to cover over the course of the next hour here. Start out with some key terms. Headsets may seem simple, but there's really a lot of technology behind it. And so I want to give you some appreciation for what all the jargon is that gets thrown around. From there, we'll build on that vocabulary by talking about a buyer's guide and give you some things to look for in a headset to match the right headset to your mission. Then we'll talk about the market. What are the headsets that are out there and available to be purchased? I'll add some editorial comments. I'll also add some comments from our customers from their reviews online. And then I'll finish with some tips and tricks. So after you purchase a headset, or if you already own one, how to get the most out of it, how to make it last, how to get the most performance from it. A couple quick caveats here as we get started. We can't possibly cover every headset. There are just dozens and dozens and dozens of headsets out there. We're going to try to hit the most popular ones that represent, in our experience, about 98% of the market here. But if we leave your favorite out, it's just because we can't cover them all in the span of an hour. We're going to limit ourselves to new headsets because really that's we think the best way to go when you're investing in something as sophisticated as this. We're also talking about only aviation headsets. Every once in a while, you'll still see someone with a hot deal on a consumer gaming headphones that they've modified for aviation, and I would urge you to stay away from those. That's really not something we're going to discuss. Finally, and most importantly, headsets are very, very personal. It's been said that choosing the right headset's like choosing the right pair of shoes, and what works for you is what counts. It's absolutely true. So I'll offer some opinions because we're often asked to offer some opinions. And so I'll give you my opinion as a pilot flying with this stuff. I'll share the opinions of our customers, but really headsets are very, very personal. So I hope one of the things you take away from this presentation is that there is no one right answer for anyone. Quick history, just as we dive in, I show this only to help us appreciate how far we've come, and that aviation, just over 100 years old, for most of its life, we had no headsets. And some of you have probably even flown an airplane without a headset. And it's once you've flown with a headset, it's kind of impossible to imagine we ever did it without that. Go get in a Cessna 182 and try to talk over the speaker in the headliner and grab the hand mic. This is not a gadget. This is a real safety enhancement. So it's a great thing the headsets came around. Really, only in the early '80s that they started to be in any great use. And you can see they weren't much more than a couple of headphones and a microphone. In the mid 80s, really started taking off. The classic David Clark headset came along there. Started to see some aviation specific headsets. In the late 80s, you start to see A&R, active noise reduction, introduced, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. And really, headsets went from a basic device to a little bit more technological. In the 90s, the market grew and we had some new entrants from folks like Lightspeed and others. Late 1990s, we got really to what I call the modern active noise reduction headsets, Bose 10, for example. In the 2000s, we graduated into ever more sophisticated headsets, adding Bluetooth wireless technology and other features like that. And then in 2010s, we really hit a third generation of A&R headsets, Lightspeed Zulu 2, the Bose A20. You could almost argue that we're on the verge of a fourth generation A&R here. I'll show you some of the newer headsets tonight and leave it for you to decide whether this is the latter stages of a third generation A&R or in fact the start of a fourth generation. In any case, though, it does show you how far we've come in a fairly short amount of time in aviation. Pretty good progress when you think in terms of the technology and the safety and the performance we're getting out of these headsets. So let's start with some key terms. As always, when we do these webinars, we think it's important to define what we're talking about. We always talk about meaningless jargon spoken here because that's what we do as pilots. We throw around a lot of jargon. And that's fine, but it's worth stopping for a moment to define the terms that we're going to throw around for the next 45 minutes here. So let's walk through some of these NRR, ANR, Bluetooth, A2DP, and all these different terms, just to give you not a technical background so you know how to do the engineering necessarily, but an appreciation from the pilot's perspective of what these terms mean and how they impact your flying. First is NRR, noise reduction rating. This is the measurement in decibels of how well a headset reduces noise. So, in a sense, this seems like the perfect way to compare headsets because your total noise exposure, what you hear, is really the total noise level that your airplane is putting off minus the noise reduction rating of the headset. It sounds great, but it's really not as useful as it sounds. And what's measured in the lab is not the same way it's measured in the cockpit. What's measured for me is not what's the same as measured for you. What works in a citation versus a 172 is not the same. So in my opinion, NRR is not of a whole lot of value. Noise reduction is a much more dynamic and nuanced thing than just a simple number. And for that reason, most manufacturers have started moving away from this. They don't even publish the numbers anymore. There was a time there in the late 90s, early 2000s where there was this war for who could claim the highest noise reduction rating. And you really don't see that anymore. And I think that's a good thing. It's just not a fair comparison. There's no one number that sums up how quiet a headset is. So noise reduction rating, a term you'll still hear thrown around. Frankly, we won't use it again tonight because I don't think it's a very valuable measure. One you do hear an awful lot, and one most of you are probably familiar with, is ANR, active noise reduction. Sometimes you'll hear this called ENC for electronic noise cancellation. Same idea. All headsets have passive noise reduction. This is simply the physics of an ear cup going around your ear and blocking out noise with plastic and metal and ear seals. All headsets have that to a certain extent. Active noise reduction um, adds on top of that, and this adds microphones that listen to the ambient noise in layman's terms. They listen to the noise that is being emitted in your cockpit. And then speakers right next to your ear will emit a sound wave that's the same amplitude but inverted phase. And the net effect of that is it cancels out that noise electronically. This was a really radical new concept when it first came out. It's become very accepted now because it flat out works. It works very, very well. And it works very well on low frequency noise, which we experience a lot of in airplanes, especially engine and propeller noise, a lot of that low rumble droning sound that's very, very fatiguing. A&R does a very, very good job of reducing that noise. Bluetooth is another term that, again, most of us probably know, but in terms of how it impacts a headset, we're really talking about connecting your headset to a phone or music device. So it's a wireless technology, obviously, lets you connect wirelessly, requires you to pair the two devices, which takes just a minute the first time you do it. After that is fairly automatic. It's great for picking up clearances on the ground. So why would you want Bluetooth? Well, you could, if you're on the ground, and you need to call flight service for clearance. You can do it through your headset instead of trying to hold that phone to your head and shout over the engine noise. When we talk about Bluetooth, though, it's important to think about phone or music or both. Your phone and your iPod or your iPhone with music can connect both of them to your headset with Bluetooth, but they're not really the same thing. Let's explain why. Another term comes into play here called A2DP, or Advanced Audio Distribution Profile. This is the part of Bluetooth that allows you to stream music wirelessly. So I can have a Bluetooth connection to my headset and make a phone call, but that doesn't necessarily mean I can listen to music through Bluetooth. That's where this A2DP comes into, and it allows that stereo audio to be transmitted. It generally requires Bluetooth 2.0, although frankly, these days almost every device has that now. That's a fairly old spec. The Lightspeed Zulu series, Sennheiser S1, and the AKG all have this, and we'll talk more about those models later on. Um, of note, the S1 and the AKG also have, I guess, what you call a related technology. Another keyword for you here, another jargon is AVRCP, which I won't even bother defining for you, other than to say that's what gives you the play button and the stop button and the skip track button on your headset. So some of these headsets, in addition to streaming the music, can actually control your music device. So you can play and pause music right from your headset without having to reach for your iPod. That's that AVRCP. So kind of confusing there, but Bluetooth, when you think about it, is really three parts. I can do Bluetooth phone connection, I can do Bluetooth audio connection, and I can do this AVRCP, which is Bluetooth control of my remote device. Another term that you hear somewhat frequently when we talk about headsets and really a lot of other aviation gear is TSO. Stands for Technical Standard Order. There are technical standard orders for all kinds of equipment in aviation. And what a TSO really does is just lays out the FAA's minimum performance standards. It's not necessarily something you get certified through, it's just sort of a standard statement. TSO C139 is the current TSO for headsets. Does it matter for us? Well, if you're Part 91, no, it doesn't. Doesn't matter at all. You can have a TSO'd or non-TSO'd headset either way, doesn't matter. TSO'd headsets are required for Part 121 or airline operations. And I say sort of because it's not really a black and white thing. Let's just say if you're an airline pilot, TSO is something to at least look into, consider. It's more of an SOP airline policy than it is a hard and fast FAR. The question, though, that might follow is a TSO headset must be better, right? If it meets TSO, it must be better. Well, I'd say not necessarily. Certainly, if it does meet TSO, that's a good thing. That's a vote of confidence, but that doesn't necessarily define a great headset versus a bad headset. So, for most of us as GA pilots flying piston airplanes, TSO, it's worth understanding what it is, but I wouldn't get real caught up in it. How about LEMO and XLR? These are two terms that refer to types of connectors. In other words, how we plug the headset into the panel. Most of us will plug the headset in with two twin plugs, PJ plugs, some people call them, one for mic and one for phone. That's the standard general aviation twin plug setup. Two other types you hear though are LEMO and XLR. LEMO is really a brand name, but it's sort of the Kleenex of this style of connector. It's a 6-pin powered plug, single plug. You'll see this in a lot of new airplanes. I think all Cirruses come with it. And it's a way to plug your headset into the panel, and the panel, the ship's power, powers the headset. You don't have to have batteries. XLR, similar idea. It's used on Airbus airplanes. So I'm going to guess most of us aren't flying Airbus out there tonight, but it's the same idea. If you probably don't want to buy an XLR headset for your Cherokee. As I said, though, the nice thing is that both of these do eliminate the need for a separate battery box. Stereo mono is something that I would say most of us probably get on a basic level. How it works with headsets is a little different and can be confusing. The reality is most headsets have both. There are some that are mono only. Stereo allows the option to hear stereo audio in the headset, obviously. This requires a stereo intercom, though. So a nice stereo headset in your 1961 Cherokee probably isn't going to do anything because you've probably got a mono intercom. And at the end of the day, stereo doesn't really matter for air traffic control. You know, the basics of communicating, stereo is not a big deal. So why would you care? Well, number one, if you have a stereo intercom, it can be nice, and almost all new intercoms are stereo. And number two, it can come into play in terms of listening to external audio sources. So, in general, you're going to have stereo regardless. Some headsets offer the option to get mono or stereo. It's usually not a lot of money, so I'd say go for the stereo just for future compatibility. But certainly a mono only headset, if you're in the market for one of those, that's not a disaster. That's not something to avoid. Another one we'll talk about briefly here is the type of microphone, and this gets really technical, and frankly, is another thing that I wouldn't worry much about because almost every single headset you can buy today is an electret microphone. It's a type of condenser microphone. It's really the standard, and is a good quality electret canceling noise canceling microphone is good for all of us. The only reason I mention this is that you will see out there, as you see on the screen there, sometimes you'll see a military headset. This is the David Clark H1076. And most of the military headsets out there have a low impedance dynamic mic. And all I tell you is if you see that, run away because it's not for you in general aviation. That's not going to work with your standard general aviation intercom. So electric mic is what you want in GA, and that low impedance dynamic mic you want to stay away from. All right, so that's some of the technical background behind headsets. Let's now get into a buyer's guide and consider, I've just told you some things that, in my opinion, you shouldn't worry about. So you might be saying, well, what should I worry about? Well, let's go through some of those things and discuss what I think might matter. And I'll give you a list here of things I think do matter to consider: comfort, quiet, clarity, audio and phone features, durability, and manufacturer support. Pretty much the only con you're going to weigh against that is price. You can have almost all those check marks on the left. It's just a matter of price. And so that's why, in a lot of ways, I say there is no perfect headset. You have to match the headset to your mission, just like an airplane. There's no perfect airplane. The right airplane for you is the airplane that matches your mission and what type of flying you do. Same thing with the headset. So we'll talk about all these features. And again, the point is not to come up with the winning headset and crown a champion. The point here is for you to consider all these elements and decide what matters for the type of flying you do and what doesn't matter, or at least what matters less, and choose the headset that's a fit for you. I'm going to start with comfort, and that may sound like a really boring thing and kind of a fuzzy term, but I think this may be the most important feature in a headset. If you're going to be wearing a headset for a while, comfort really, really matters. If you can't stand to wear the thing, it doesn't matter how quiet it is, it doesn't matter how great the audio is, it has to be comfortable. And this is where most newer headsets have really improved. If you think back to kind of the old days of early headsets, they were affectionately called vice clamps because the only way they canceled noise was to squeeze your head to make a tight seal around your ears. So most modern headsets are much, much better than that. And I still think it's a very important thing to consider. Comfort is obviously a personal thing, so there's no right answer here. I think weight matters for sure. Lighter headset generally going to be more comfortable. It's going to pull down less on your head, less pressure on the top of your head. But weight distribution also matters, and some of the higher end headsets think very carefully about this in terms of is the weight in the ear cups, is the weight in the headband, what does that mean in terms of comfort? Ear seals is another critical part. Ear seals, again, look like a really boring part of a headset, but you'd be shocked at how much effort the headset companies spend in creating really comfortable ear seals for your headset, because that's in a lot of ways what determines how quiet and how comfortable a headset is. So consider the size of the ear seals, the quality of them. Also consider the headband. That's the other piece that really works in tandem with an ear seal. The headband that rests on top of your head, that's going to matter a lot. And then side pressure. So I mentioned the vice clamp. How much does a headset squeeze? In general, it's a lot less than it used to be. And some of these headsets even offer an adjustable side pressure, which, if you're particular about that, or particularly large or small head, that may be something that's of interest for you. So comfort, again, don't get caught up in that whole noise reduction rating thing. I would start with comfort and what's comfortable for you. That matters a lot. Quiet is probably number two, and this is probably number one for most pilots. We do talk a lot about quiet. Um, it's very important. I wouldn't try to pretend that it's not important, because the main reason you buy a headset is to make the world quieter so you can hear and communicate. The only thing I'd point out is that noise really does depend on how you perceive it as a pilot. So it's another one of these things that's different for everybody. Certainly, some headsets are flat out quieter than others, but it depends on you and the shape of your head and the type of airplane you're flying and the noise you're exposed to. So it's really again a matter of, is it quiet enough and does it work for your airplane? I don't think there's a minimum quiet standard necessarily you have to meet. What may be good for you is not good for me. So consider quiet. Again, I think it's probably point number two or maybe 1B behind comfort. Um, but this is another one of those things to consider your type of flying and match it to it. There's no hard and fast black and white. This is the quiet headset. This is not. Here's the rating for it. The third one of what I'd call the big three is clarity, and often overlooked. Really, we kind of take it for granted, but it's really essential. Again, if the first job of a headset is to cancel noise and make it quieter, right behind that, number two is clear communications. That's the whole point, right? The whole point is that we can hear air traffic control or our co-pilot or our passengers and communicate back to them very, very clearly. So if you've got a quiet headset but the speakers are terrible or the microphone's terrible, you've wasted your money. So again, often overlooked here, but I think it's a critical part. And this is really where a cheap headset falls short. I think there are some cheap kind of knockoff headsets out there that can be lightweight, maybe even do okay on noise cancellation, but they really cheap out on the speakers or the mic, and that's where you can tell. So most of the ones we'll talk about tonight are very good on this score. Certainly, the high end ones use some very sophisticated audio engineering tricks to really come up with some fantastic audio quality and microphone quality. So overall, this is another spec that has improved dramatically over the past 20 years. But it's something to consider. Fourth, and one that's increasingly important, here we're past kind of the fuzzy, how does it work for you, and more into the specs territory. And this is audio and phone features. The first thing I'd start with here is, do they matter for you? For some pilots, they don't care. They're never going to listen to music in flight. They're never going to make a phone call. So for those pilots, maybe you're a bush pilot in Alaska and you don't have cell phone coverage anyway. It may not matter, so forget about it. This is not of interest to you. I would say, though, that for the majority of us today, this is becoming a more and more important feature. The ability to make a phone call on the ground and update friends and family on an ETA, or again, file that flight plan, get a clearance, or to listen to music, even if it's not for you as a pilot, but for passengers, this has become a pretty important feature. So we talked earlier about Bluetooth, and there's different versions of that, phone and audio. So when you talk about audio and phone features, you really want to walk through all the options. First is, some headsets offer a wired phone interface, some offer a wired audio interface, some offer Bluetooth phone, some offer Bluetooth audio, and as I mentioned, some even offer audio controls on the headset. So there are a lot of different ways. Most of the higher end, mid range, higher end headsets allow you to connect your phone and a music device to your headset. How they do it varies though. So this is something to pay attention to. Is wireless a big deal for you, or are you okay with wires? Consider this as you go through the shopping process. For most pilots, and especially for passengers, I've noticed this is a really important part of the buying process. The other thing to point out is what I have down there at the bottom. This is not just about music. Some pilots you talk to and say, well, I don't listen to music. I fly in busy airspace and I'm IFR. I don't have time to listen to music. And that's fine. But this can also be helpful for things like audio alerts. Maybe you've got a Garmin GPS and it gives terrain alerts. Maybe it's connected to your iPad app. Some of the apps like ForeFlight give you an audio alert when you cross an active runway, for example. So it's not just amusement. It's not just music. There are some pretty good safety features that you can have here with an audio input. So consider those in addition to the music part when you're talking about audio and phone features. Another one that we should all think about is durability. Most of these headsets, let's be honest, are fairly expensive. You want them to last. So consider how durable is the product. In general, I would say ANR headsets are not as durable as passive headsets, and that's simply because there's a lot of electronics going on inside there. Many of them have multiple microphones, some of them even external. So they're not as bulletproof as a passive headset. Now, I don't mean to suggest that ANR headsets are frail or fragile. They're not. And many customers are flying with ANR headsets 15, 20 years on. So I'm not trying to say they aren't sturdy. The headset manufacturers spend a lot of time making sure they last. I only point this out if you're a real hardcore user, again, like this gentleman in the picture here. If you're flying a float plane in Alaska and you're a real hard user and you're just going to beat the heck out of your headset, this might be where the durability part comes into. David Clark has a kind of a legendary reputation for indestructible headsets. The classic H1030 or H1013.4 headset, you can all but drive a truck over it and it will still survive. So if you're really going to abuse a headset, that's something to consider. Other than that, though, other than real extreme conditions, all these headsets are fine. And from the major brands, they have great support anyway. So consider durability. But again, if you're flying 50 hours a year and renting a 172, almost any headset's going to be fine in this category. Closely related to that is manufacturer support. So again, if that headset's going to last 10 or 15 years, you're probably going to have to repair it at some point, or at least buy an accessory, or at least buy new ear seals for it. So it's worth considering the company you're doing business with. Think about the warranty. Most warranties on these headsets are anywhere from 2 to 5 years. Um, but more importantly than the actual warranty, what's the reputation of the company? What do other pilots say about the company and how they support old headsets? Many of these companies really bend over backwards and will fix and repair, sometimes even at no cost, headsets that are years and years out of warranty. So the headset manufacturers will probably not be happy with me for telling you that, but I'll say that if every product in America was supported the way that aviation headsets were, we'd all be happier because in general, it's really excellent. You can send a headset back for repair that is 25 years old and get really good service. So this is another one. Read reviews, talk to other pilots, read the warranty, and consider the support you're going to get from the manufacturer. Another item to consider is those cable variations. We mentioned the LEMO plug or the 6-pin plug. That is a nice option because it eliminates batteries. So a lot of people like that. The problem is it does require installation. So this is not something you can just put in your airplane all by yourself. It's going to take an avionics shop to wire this in. It's not a hard job. They can do it pretty quickly, but it is something you're going to want to have a shop do. Again, unless your airplane has LEMO plugs built in, which some of the newer models do. So consider whether you're going to fly an airplane that has LEMO plugs. The advantage of battery power, though, is it's totally portable. You can take that battery powered twin plug headset and go anywhere, almost any airplane, and be ready to go. So there's an advantage to that. If you're a helicopter pilot, obviously you're going to want a single pilot plug or single plug, not the twin plug. So choose that. The other thing that's worth mentioning, though, is that if you fly multiple airplanes, maybe you're in a club and there are multiple configurations, or you hop around airplanes as a flight instructor, there are some options there. So, for example, Bose sells a LEMO to twin plug adapter. So you could buy a LEMO plug Bose for your main airplane, but if you occasionally jump into a twin plug airplane, an airplane that doesn't have that LEMO plug, you can use this adapter. AKG, we'll talk about their new headset. It actually includes both panel and twin plugs with it. So again, that's one to match to your mission. You know what kind of airplanes you're flying, how much you're jumping around. Finally, little stuff. And none of these really should be the yes or no decision maker, I don't think, but they're all things to keep in mind. Sometimes it can make a difference. So many of these newer headsets, the ear cups fold, and that makes these much lower profile for storage in a flight bag. Consider that. The AKG headset has lights built into the ear cup, which could be a nice emergency tool, a nice backup, or a nice way to light charts. I have iPad there just because as more and more of us fly with iPads, I don't need a chart light nearly as much. So it may be of limited value for the charts, but it still has some value for general cockpit lighting. Does it include a carrying case? That's something to consider. And the other one's battery life. This is a pretty important one. The battery life, and this comes into play with an ANR headset or a Bluetooth headset, can have an important role. This will range anywhere from 15 to 50 hours depending on the headset and also depending on the features. We'll talk later about how Bluetooth can really cut down your battery life. So, in general, you're going to get usually around 20 hours out of a ANR headset with Bluetooth and ANR on. That's a really rough number. It'll go to about 40 hours ish without the Bluetooth on, but with ANR on. So those are just kind of reference numbers to think about. Again, that is going to vary headset to headset, but give that some consideration when you're buying a headset. All right, so with all of that information in mind and all of those things to look at, let's now jump into what's available, what's out there on the market, and consider some headsets you can actually buy. Number one, it's worth pointing out there are many, many options. You can spend under $150 and you can spend over $1,000. So it's easy to get confused here. I'm going to try to break the market down into four rough groups: passive headsets, mid range ANR headsets, the super high end headsets, and then the niche markets, lightweight and in the air and in the ear. And we'll run through those to try to give you a sense of what are the general market segments that maybe will help you sort through all the different options out there. Before we get to that, though, just wanted to highlight a couple things that we're going to be talking about here through the market, of what's new. And the biggest trend the last few years in aviation headsets has been innovation at the high end. Passive headsets have stayed fairly steady, with one small addition over the last 5 years, I'll mention. Most of the action has been at the high end of the market: the Bose, the Lightspeed, and the Sennheiser and new entrants. And these headsets are really becoming quite technologically advanced. They have multiple ANR microphones. So the original ANR had one microphone basically that listened for noise and canceled it. Some of these new headsets have internal and external microphones. They're constantly monitoring. They have digital ANR, which has even morphed into adaptive ANR. Some of these headsets have, where they sort of learn the noise environment you're flying in and constantly fine tune the ANR to be better and better and better. So this is something you'll see in a couple headsets, that it's not just a static, here's the noise reduction and it blasts away. They're constantly adapting and improving to the environment, and that's been a big change the last couple of years. High-end Bluetooth features, we've talked about some of those, but we've gone far beyond just connecting a cell phone and now into some pretty high-tech music features. A real focus on comfort, and I mentioned that early on, that comfort matters, I think, more, maybe even more than quiet, and the headset manufacturers have really taken to that. They're making some very, very comfortable headsets. And then that can you top this service? As I mentioned, the service from these companies has really become quite good. And I think all the headset manufacturers have decided that this is a good way to earn your business, is to have better and better support. So those are some of the overall trends we're seeing and what's new in headsets. And we'll talk about each of these as we go through the market here and discuss what headsets are available. Before we do that, though, as we talk about buying a new headset, I'd like to get your input on what's your budget for the next headset you're going to buy. So, again, the poll's up there on screen. If you want to click on next headset you buy, whether it's tomorrow or 6 months from now, what kind of price category are you looking in? What are you looking to spend? And as the votes are coming in here, it looks like the majority, it's pretty evenly spread out. Most people are in the $500 to $900 range. But honestly, it's very evenly spread between that 900 plus and the $200 to $500 range. Not many looking for that under 200 price point. So that's good. Pretty good variety out there. And we'll go through all those segments. So let's start with the passive headsets here. This is a great entry level option. 15 or 20 years ago, passive headsets is all we had. Now it's become more of an entry level option, but they're still great headsets. They're affordable. These are, as I said, really durable. One pro of no active noise reduction is that there's no batteries to worry about. You just plug in the headset and go. No controls, no batteries to charge. There is something to be said for that simplicity. The cons, obviously, these are generally heavier and squeeze more. That's how they reduce the noise. They don't have that electronic piece of it. They have to do a more physical version of it. Most of these don't have a cell phone input, although some of the newer ones do. Um, and there are lots of options down here in this end of the market. I've highlighted the four most popular and I think the four highest quality ones. The Sigtronics S20 is a great starter headset. It's under $150, so it's great if you're a student pilot on a budget, or for a second headset, maybe for passengers. It's basic, but it's made in the USA. It's tough as nails, and is a great starter headset. Telex Echelon 20 steps up a little bit in price and a little bit more comfortable. The David Clark H10 13.4, again, that's sort of the gold standard of the passive headsets. That's up in the $250 plus range, but a great headset, very, very reliable, and one of the more popular headsets ever made out there. The new entrant in this end of the market is the Sennheiser S1 Passive. So Sennheiser's unveiled a whole line of headsets here, three of them, two active noise reduction, one passive. And this one is the most expensive passive headset. It's over $350, but it's also, I'd say, the most comfortable one. It's got big plush ear seals and a nice headband and a great microphone. So if you're looking for more of a premium passive headset, that Sennheiser passive is a nice one. Stepping up then into what I'd call the mid-range A&R. This is a category that gets forgotten about a lot of times, but there's actually a lot of value and performance in this end of the market here. So maybe if you're on the fence, do I want A&R or not? This is a good one to look at. You're not going to go all in for $1,000 headset, but you'd like to get a little bit of A&R. This is the end of the market for you to consider. As I said, a lot of bang for the buck here. You get good A&R and you get better comfort usually. You'll get better ear seals, better headband, less squeeze here because you have A&R. The cons, you don't have the fancy digital or adaptive A&R for the maximum noise canceling. You usually don't have quite the same audio features in terms of Bluetooth audio and all that. And in general, these are heavier than a Bose or a Zulu. So they're certainly not as comfortable and as full featured as a $1,000 headset or $1,100 headset maybe, but for almost half the price, there's a lot of bang for the buck here. So again, going through four of the more popular ones here, the Sigtronics SAR would be your opening price A&R headsets under $500. The Lightspeed Sierra around $600. A lot of bang for the buck there. You get a lot of good Lightspeed quality there, and in a price range of $600. Telex Stratus 50D, a very quiet headset actually. This has some digital A&R in this case, but it's a bigger headset. You don't have the comfort and lightweight of some of the higher end headsets. And then Sennheiser has what they call the S1 Noise Guard, which is basically an analog A&R version of their S1 Digital. We'll talk about a little bit. So again, there's a lot of good value here, and if you're not quite ready to bite the bullet for a super premium headset, you might consider one of these. All right, and then finally up at the high end, the super high end or the premium. These are the best of the best, and as I mentioned, this is where really a lot of the action has been lately in terms of new developments. A lot of pros here. You get the best noise reduction overall. You get the best comfort. You get all those high-end audio features that we've talked about. The only cons really is that they're expensive. You really can have it all here. You just pay for it. So prices range here from about $1,000 to $1,100. Four of the most popular ones there, the Lightspeed Zulu PFX, which is brand new, and we'll talk about it here in just a minute. The Bose A20, which has been around for a while now, is probably the most popular one in this class right now. Sennheiser's S1 Digital, the high end of the Sennheiser range, and then a brand new company in aviation, the AKG AV100. We're going to talk about all four of these headsets in a little bit more detail because this is, as I said, the end of the market with the most action and the most new features. So we'll come back to these in just a moment. Then the two niche markets in headsets, just very briefly. First, lightweight headsets. These are mostly for corporate or airline pilots. These are very, very lightweight. They rest on the ear instead of going around the ear. So they're very lightweight, and that can make them very, very comfortable. They're also, in some cases, battery free. They have very limited A&R, and it's done through mic bias instead of through a battery pack. So that can be nice. The cons, though, for most of us flying piston airplanes, especially, the active noise reduction is just not as good. It's not that they're bad headsets; it's just not what they're made for. And in fact, the A&R in some cases is really more tuned towards minimizing wind noise. If you're in the front of a Boeing, most of the noise you hear is wind noise, which is a little higher frequency. You're not getting that low rumble from the prop. So this is again mostly for turboprop, turbine crowd, but these are great headsets. So if you're flying one of those, the Telex Airman 750 is, I'd call that sort of the gold standard in this class. Been around forever. Nothing fancy here, no active noise reduction or anything, just the kind of the classic lightweight headset. The Airman 850 adds some active noise reduction and is a really nice upgrade if you're looking for a little bit more quiet. Sennheiser also offers a couple of lightweight models. This is the HMEC 26. It does offer some A&R and is a little bit more full coverage headset. Also has that split headband, which is pretty comfortable in general. And then a new entrant here that really kind of straddles the market between a traditional headset and a lightweight is David Clark's Pro X. It's a lightweight headset because it sits on the ear. Um, the A&R is pretty good, and as you'll see later, there's plenty of pilots who are flying with this David Clark Pro X in piston airplanes. In my experience, it's marginal on the noise reduction. It's not bad for a noisy airplane like a Baron or an Aztec. I think it's marginal. For something quieter, maybe a pressurized piston single, it can work quite well because it really does have very good active noise reduction. So that one's maybe not a classic lightweight headset. The last one to talk about is the in-the-ear headsets, and there was a lot of action around in-the-ear headsets about 10 years ago. It's kind of faded, but it's still a nice little niche for some pilots. The pros are easy to understand. These are extremely lightweight. I mean, these headsets weigh almost nothing. There's no side pressure because they cancel noise by having ear tips that go in the ear canal instead of squeezing your head, but they're still very, very quiet because again, they're in the ear canal blocking that noise. You get almost A&R style noise reduction without any of the pressure or batteries of a high-end A&R headset. So it's got a lot going for it. The cons, it can be uncomfortable, and this is really kind of a personal thing. You either love these headsets or you hate them. I fly with a coworker here who loves these headsets and flies with this Clarity Aloft all the time because it's lightweight, it's not hot. He loves it. I personally, after an hour or two, I find it uncomfortable and don't care for it. So it's just a personal thing, whether you like to have those little ear tips in your ears for a long period of time or not. The other thing that is a con, these aren't necessarily cheap headsets because of the many speakers in there. There's some technology going on there, and most of these are $500 and up. So it's not necessarily a cheap headset. But if it's for you and you like it, again, there's a devoted following out there for these types of headsets. The Clarity Aloft really is the standard here. They have a Clarity Aloft and a Clarity Aloft TSO'd model as well. All right, so I said I'd come back to the big four. That's what I call the Lightspeed, Bose, Sennheiser, and AKG, because this is really where a lot of new stuff is happening, and this is where we get our most common question, which is which one do I buy? So let's go through each of those headsets in a little more detail, and then I'll give you some editorial thoughts on choosing one. The A20 has been the top selling premium headset the last few years. It's really an excellent headset. It has pretty low clamping force, so it's very, very comfortable. It has Bluetooth for the phone interface, but this is an example of a headset that does not have Bluetooth audio. So you can do your phone, but to do your music, you're going to have to plug in. There's a wired input for that. The Bose does have a really nice priority switching mode, so you can block all external audio. You can mix it with the intercom, or you can do an auto mute feature. So you get to control whether you want that music to mute when air traffic control starts talking or not. The Bose is made in the USA. Made in USA. It is TSO'd and it's 1095. And again, there are options here for helicopter, Limo plug, and twin plug. It's just a great all-around headset that has a lot of the things people like about Bose: great audio quality, great attention to comfort. The brand new headset in the market from Lightspeed is their Zulu PFX, and this is sort of their best yet, their highest end, most advanced headset they've done. It's kind of a new approach to A&R. Without getting too technical, what the Zulu PFX does is that it listens to your audio environment in your airplane, but also maps your ear, for lack of a better phrase, and it adjusts the A&R to that environment. So it's constantly tuning the active noise reduction depending on your environment to make it better and better. This is part of that digital, that learning A&R, as I call it. And it's got some pretty sophisticated stuff going on in there. It also has great audio quality. Lightspeed has spent a lot of time really focusing on this and making sure that if you're going to listen to music, it sounds good, and it really does sound excellent. As a part of that, the Zulu PFX has Bluetooth for both phone and music. Another small thing, but is kind of interesting, is this is the first headset I'm aware of that's firmware upgradable. And what that means is there's basically a computer in that control box. This is sort of a smart headset that down the road will be able to be upgraded. So who knows what Lightspeed will dream up, but it is a headset you'll be able to upgrade and perhaps add new features to down the road. One other small thing that's nice about the PFX, the cable is wrapped around Kevlar. It's a very different material. It's not your standard sort of rubberized cable. It's much more flexible, much stronger, and I've found flying with it, it's actually pretty nice. It doesn't seem to get tangled or caught up as much. The Zulu PFX was announced at Oshkosh in 2013. It had a delay in development. They're working to make it better. And the good news is it's available now. They finished those improvements. The product is shipping. It's $1,100, and as I mentioned, is available now. Now, Lightspeed's not doing away with their Zulu 2. That was their previous top of the line headset. They're keeping that around because it's still an excellent headset. So it's not the PFX, maybe in terms of A&R and all that fancy learning adaptive A&R, but it's still very good, and it's very comfortable. It's got a nice stainless steel headband. It's very strong. It's got Bluetooth phone and music, so a lot of those high-end audio features. It's got auto mute in the audio. And at 850, it's a little bit lower than some of these super premium ones, a little bit more than that mid-range A&R. It kind of straddles those two. And again, it's probably some pretty good bang for the buck. So Zulu 2 is definitely not going away. One other thing to mention with Lightspeed headsets is Lightspeed has an app called Flight Link. It's a free app. This lets you record and play back audio. You can be recording your flight. If you missed a clearance, you can play it back. You can copy clearances in the app. You can also adjust settings, and this really comes into play with the PFX. You can do a lot of customization of the PFX in terms of volumes and bass and treble, and you can do that through the app. So if you're a Lightspeed owner, you should check out the Flight Link app. Sennheiser's top of the line is the S1 Digital, and Sennheiser's really made a strong push into general aviation in the last few years. They've been real leaders in commercial headsets for a number of years. You'll see them on a lot of airlines, but they've really dedicated themselves to general aviation lately. And the S1 Digital is a worthy competitor to the big Bose and Lightspeed battle. It again has some of that smart or adaptive digital A&R. Little different approach than Lightspeed, but same general concept in that it's sort of constantly resampling the noise environment and fine tuning the A&R. One nice thing I like about the S1 Digital is it has that adjustable headband tension so that you can adjust how much pressure you get around the ears. It does have the Bluetooth phone and music. This is one of the headsets that does let you control the audio wirelessly right from the device, right from the headset, which is nice. Stainless steel headband made in Germany, and it's $995. A little bit bigger headset maybe than especially the Bose, but a real focus on quiet and audio quality. And if you've ever used a Sennheiser microphone, maybe in a music setting, you know their microphones are fantastic. The newest player in aviation headsets is AKG, and it's a new name for probably most of us, but the parent company is Harman, which most of us probably have heard of in terms of the audio world. They do lots of audio equipment and car stereos and things like that. So they've been around a while. It's a high-end headset. It's got Bluetooth phone and music. Again, it's got those built-in audio controls in the headset control box, like the Sennheiser. It has those LEDs on the ear cups we mentioned earlier. And I also mentioned that this has both LEMO and twin plugs in the box, so you really don't have to choose. It all comes with it. The AKG, again, brand new, but is shipping. It's available now and is $10.99. All right, so that's the facts, and that's all the detail behind how the headsets work and what they do. Now we're going to get into maybe dangerous territory here, but give you some editorial comments and reviews. And I don't do this to try to sell you on one or another, but we always get the question of what do you think as a pilot? And so I'm going to share my views and some of the views of other pilots here at Sporty's. I'll share those views, then I'll share customer reviews so you get that perspective as well. So as I say, editorial comments, these are totally biased. But with that in mind, here's my couple of thoughts. First, avoid that $99 special on a passive headset. You see the sign at the bottom, discount surgery, $50. I don't think any of us would go looking for a discount surgeon to do open heart surgery. Same thing. Headsets are really pretty important part of our flying. They protect our hearing. They help us hear traffic control. You really shouldn't be finding something that's of dubious quality. That doesn't mean you have to pay $1,000 for a headset right off the bat. My point is there are plenty of headsets well under $200 that are well made, will last you a long time, and are reliable. You get what you pay for there. In general, A&R is expensive. It's going to automatically take your price of a passive headset and almost double it. I will say that in general, it's worth it. A&R is not a fad. A&R really does make a headset better and make it quieter. So if you can afford it, A&R is worth it. But there's nothing wrong with starting with a passive headset and then trading up later. This happens a fair amount. You're learning to fly, money's tight because you're renting an airplane a lot and a flight instructor. So if all you can afford is that $150 headset, great, go for it. There's nothing wrong with that, particularly because that headset can easily be made into a passenger's headset. Once you get your license, and once you're taking passengers, you're probably going to need another headset anyway. So if you start passive and you upgrade to a fancy A&R, maybe as a check ride present, nothing wrong with that at all. Again, as I said, the big question we get most often is, it used to be Lightspeed or Bose. It used to be Zulu or A20. Now it's become Zulu A20, Zulu PFX, AKG, AV100, or Sennheiser S1. There's more options. At the end of the day, this is kind of a Coke and Pepsi thing. It's a personal decision. I love Coke. I hate Pepsi. I know plenty of people who are the exact opposite. And you're not going to convince me that Pepsi's good because, in my mind, I like Coke. It's the same way with headsets. There are Bose people, there are Lightspeed people, there are Sennheiser people. I'm sure there will soon be AKG people. A lot of it's personal preference. So, again, I don't think there's one right answer here. It's what you prefer. My opinion and a random sampling of about 5 pilots around here at Sporties that are regularly flying with different ones. By a nose, what I heard was Bose is the most comfortable one. Lightspeed is the quietest one. In this case, I'm talking about the PFX. And then I heard a lot of good things about AKG and Sennheiser, particularly on the audio side. People love the Sennheiser microphone. People like the ability to control Bluetooth music from the headset. Uh, does that mean, for example, that Lightspeed is uncomfortable or that Bose is not quiet? Well, obviously not. These are great headsets. Um, that's just a maybe by a nose some reaction. The biggest takeaway, though, I'd say on this big four question to me is they're all great headsets. This is like choosing between a Ferrari and a Lamborghini. This is a good problem to have. And I don't think there's a wrong answer here. So it's good. Obviously, you're going to spend $1,000 or more. You want to do your research, you want to make the right choice, and that is the right thing to do. But I'd say don't get too caught up in it because these are all great headsets. And in fact, 10 years ago, we would have killed to have any one of these as an option. So I don't think there's a bad choice here. I don't think there's a wrong answer. And that's important to keep in mind here. Choose the one that you prefer, certainly, but don't worry about making the wrong decision, I don't think. So that's my opinion and a couple of pilots at Sporty's opinions. I wanted to share with you a couple of reviews just from customers because that's the other side of it. As I said, don't take my word for it. And this is where I'd encourage you to check out sporties.com/headsets. We've got over 30,000 total reviews on our site that can really be a great source of information for you. All these are verified buyers, so there's no review spam here. You had to buy it to review it. We also give you the pilot rating so you can judge. If a guy's an ATP and flying a Boeing, that may not help you as a student pilot in a 152. And also to note that we publish them all, good, bad, and ugly. We do not censor these except to make sure they're PG rated. And you can see that below. Here's two of my favorites. Here's a good one. This headset is worth its weight in gold. He loved it. But here's another one we published. Buy this product only if you are starved and have no income. That's certainly not a glowing review, but you know what? It's valid feedback. So we're going to put it up there. So I want to run through a couple of those headsets and just share some of the highlights of the reviews, and then we'll close with a few tips for owning a headset and take your questions. First, the A20. Again, look at the overall rating here. 97% of customers who bought it would recommend it. The average rating is 5 stars, so the average pilot flying with the Bose A20 is very, very satisfied. This is a representative sampling of comments. A lot of people liked, again, that comfort. Even for long days, it's comfortable. The battery life is outstanding. And I'd say, in general, the comment we see most often is, boy, it was a lot of money, but it was worth it. This one gentleman here, I'm a CFI. I'm by no means rich, but I thought it was worth it. The Zulu 2, again, look at this. 98% would recommend it, 4.5 star rating. Great sound. We hear this a lot with Lightspeed. Great sound. The Bluetooth features are fantastic. And it's also a good looking headset, which is, something to consider. It's stylish and modern. And again, good bang for the buck here. Sennheiser S1, very comfortable. Again, the adjustable clamping force is something we saw a lot of people really happy with. Very high quality construction, and then that fidelity. A lot of people praising the Sennheiser microphone and audio quality. The Zulu PFX is brand new, so we don't have any customer reviews, but here are some review notes from 3 different pilots who have flown with the Zulu PFX. Very quiet, probably quieter than a Bose A20, pretty high praise there. Comfortable ear seals, they said, maybe not as light as a Bose, but comfortable ear seals. Fantastic audio quality and Bluetooth features. This reviewer is really singing the praises of the music. He's a music fan. Another one, love the cable design. That again, that Kevlar cable I mentioned. It's really convenient in the cockpit, they said. One reviewer did say it's maybe a little complicated because it does so much. There's a little bit of a learning curve here, just because there's lots of options. Again, the AKG 100 is brand new, so no customer reviews in on that yet, but some product tester comments again. Very comfortable ear seals. They're almost like oversized ear seals. So very comfortable ear seals and headband. Microphone and audio quality, again, from Harman, who's in the kind of the pro audio business. Um, really won some plaudits for that one. Very high tech look. It has sort of a carbon fiber look to it. One reviewer said the A&R was good, but didn't think it was quite up to Zulu or A20 levels. And another reviewer said it was a little heavier than he expected it to be. A couple more here. The Lightspeed Sierra, again, 94% recommended and good value for the money. That's the overriding thing we see on Sierra. Not as good as a Zulu, but boy, for the money, it's a great headset and a lot of bang for the buck. So a good step-up option, as this student pilot here refers to. Real good step-up option from maybe a cheaper headset you wish you hadn't bought. David Clark Pro X. Again, this is the one I mentioned that can work in piston airplanes. It does depend on kind of you and your airplane. Here's a gentleman in an F-33 Bonanza who says it works great. The noise canceling is good. And very comfortable, again, because it's so lightweight and has these soft ear pads. It can be very comfortable even on a long day. One thing it's worth noting here is that last comment, which is it does take some time to figure out the right position for it. You need to spend some time to get it positioned on your ear to get the proper amount of noise canceling. David Clark H10 13.4, 97% recommended. People love this headset. It's most popular for a reason. Here's a typical review of an H10 13.4. This gentleman has one that's 22 years old. It's still working great, and so he bought another one in an excellent value. So again, that headset really gets praised for being just about indestructible. Sigtronics S20, again here, 96% recommended, 4.5-star rating. Nice headset for the money, surprisingly light and great for on a budget. So there again, for under $150, you can get a headset that's really, really well made and will last. All right, so I want to close with just a couple of tips here in our remaining time and then answer a couple of your questions that continue to come in. Some tips to remember, and you might think owning a headset, what's there to do? Turn it on, put it on. Well, I think there's a couple things to think about that can make it your performance better and longevity better. One is most A&R headsets are actually one-sided. So if you look at them, they'll have an L and an R in the ear cups. And I see a lot of pilots get this wrong, but they are meant to go on one-sided. The ear cups are not symmetrical. So you want to put the left ear cup on the left ear. Take note of that. If you're constantly flying right seat, many of these headsets will let you switch the microphone position, either flip it over or with a couple screws, you can screw it out and flip it. So you can do that if you want to put the mic in the other side. But take note of that. They're one-sided usually. Know how to set the stereo, mono, and auto shut-off features. Those are two features you'll do a lot. Most common thing you'll see here is the headset will be set to stereo. You plug it into a mono intercom. You'll only hear audio out of one ear. What that's telling you to do is switch back to mono because you have a mono intercom audio panel. So know where that switch is. You plug it in, you only hear audio in one ear. It's probably not the headset. You just need to go back to mono. Some of these switches you'll notice can be in the battery box. They're called dip switches a lot of times. You have to take out the batteries and find them there. Sometimes they'll be on the front of the control panel, but just find where those are. And then third, that good ear seal is critical. So don't just slap the headset on. Make sure it's fully fitted around your ears and sealed up, because that is how, especially with an A&R headset, that's how you get good noise cancellation. Replace your ear seals. Those things do wear out. If you're putting them on and off, if you're sliding glasses through them or sunglasses through them, they will wear out. It's just a fact of life. I would plan on replacing your ear seals about every 18 months. They're not that expensive. It's a small investment in the life of your headset. Here's a big one. Keep track of your volumes. When you think about the average cockpit and you get in and, oh my gosh, that's really loud, what's the first thing you reach for? You may reach for the headset audio and volume controls. And that may be right, but think about for a second all the different audio volume knobs that can come into play. You've got intercom volume. and you've got radio volume and headset volume and aux audio or phone volume. If you've got an audio issue, specifically a volume issue, stop and think about what's too loud or too soft. The volume of your Copilot, if you can't hear your Copilot, that's probably the intercom volume you need to play with. If you can't hear air traffic control or the unicom frequency, that's probably the radio volume. Reach up onto your radio and adjust that volume. If it's just everything's quiet, you can't hear anything, try cranking up the volume on your headset, usually two dials or knobs on your headset. A good tip there is to sync that with your Copilot. Get it so that you can set the radio volume to a constant level and both you and your passenger or Copilot can hear it, and sync that up. And then third, obviously, probably the easiest one, if your music's not loud enough, crank up the music source or crank up the phone. So sounds complicated, but just think through your airplane and what you have installed. There are actually a lot of different volumes you can set. Third, protect your investment with a headset bag. Many of these come with a headset bag, whether it's that dedicated headset bag, a flight bag. It's really a bad idea to drop your $1,000 headset on the ramp and smash it to pieces. So for less than $50, you can have a really good padded headset that will protect that investment. And turn off Bluetooth when not in use. If you're not going to be using that phone or audio feature, turn the Bluetooth off because that will run down your battery anywhere from 20 to 40%, depending on the headset. So if you're not going to be using Bluetooth today, turn it off. Last tips here, always carry extra batteries. I like to carry them in these little glow in the dark battery packs. So I've always got 4 of them with me and I can find them. They're not rolling around the floor. Cable management, if you've got a lot of cables winding around the cockpit and you want to get them organized, a little Velcro goes a long way. These are these Velcro wraps that we sell at Sporty's. They're great. They're cheap. Wrap up your cables, keep them organized. Clothing clips are nice, especially the lighter the headset. A clothing clip can be nice to keep when you turn your head, the headset doesn't get ripped off your head. And finally, I can tell you this one from personal experience. If you go land somewhere for the $100 hamburger and you're parked on the ramp for 2 hours while you eat, do not leave your headset on the glare shield in the sun baking, because when you get back, it will be so hot that you will burn your ears. So if you're going to park outside and you can't take your headset with you, put it down. I like to put it down almost by the rudder pedals so it's out of the sun. It's a small thing, but it makes a really big difference. One shameless plug here for Sporties. We are the #1 aviation headset retailer. We only sell quality headsets. You'll notice there's a lot of headsets we don't sell. It's because, frankly, we don't think they would stack up. We don't think you'd be happy with them. We do offer same-day shipping. 2-day delivery is standard. And we do offer free same-day shipping with 2-day delivery, free shipping on Bose, Zulu, and Sennheiser headsets. And we guarantee the lowest prices, so we'll match something if you find it lower. All that's at sporties.com/headsets. We have a headset buyer's guide there. We have all those reviews, all the information. If you want to go do more research, I encourage you to go to that web link right there and do some more research. We've got just a minute or two left here. I want to get to a couple of questions real quick and answer some of those before we close up tonight. So first question here is just a comment. Somebody says FlightLink is great for students to record lessons. That's that Lightspeed app, and that is certainly very true. One of the questions here is, do any of the big four have PTT or push to talk on the headset? None of them do that I'm aware of. Most of the time your push to talk switch is going to be on your yoke or maybe a portable one. So you're usually not going to have a push to talk right on the headset. Let's see. How well received is a David Clark H1013X? That's one that we didn't talk about tonight. That's sort of their previous generation A&R headset. It's a good quality headset. What the H1013X is basically is the H1013.4, that classic passive headset style that many of you are probably familiar with. And they put active noise reduction in there. So it does a good job. I wouldn't say it's in the class of a Bose or a Lightspeed or a Sennheiser in terms of comfort or A&R. It's just not as quiet or as comfortable. But for less money and in a darn near indestructible design, it does have a little niche there. If you're looking to save some money and you're looking for a really durable headset, it does a nice job. I just wouldn't expect quite the same comfort or noise reduction. And then one here about comments or reviews about the mid-range headsets. Again, the only editorial comment I'd offer on the mid-range is that if you're looking for the lowest price A&R you can get into is that Sigtronics SAR. If you're looking for a lot of bang for the buck, I think that Lightspeed Sierra is excellent for $600. In that price range, you can get an awful lot of value for it, and check that out. Those are probably two of the more popular ones and are well reviewed on our website. With that, we're going to close up. My email address is there on the screen. If you have other questions at the end of this webinar that you didn't think of, feel free to drop me a line. I'd be happy to answer them. And again, if you missed something, check out the recording of this webinar at sportys.com/webinar coming up. With that, I'll thank you. Appreciate your attention. Appreciate all your participation and wish you a very good evening. And thanks for joining us.